Welcome to the 2014 Federal Executive Forum Series on Federal News Radio, 1500 AM. Today's very special episode brings you Profiles in Excellence, Federal IT Success Stories, and Best Practices. Here's your host, Jim Flyzik.
Welcome to the special show coming to you from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. I'm Jim Flyzik. During today's show, we will discuss IT success stories at numerous government agencies and hear from key leaders making them happen. We will be doing the show in 3 segments with 3 different groups of federal executives. With me in the first segment today are Joe Klimavicz, the Chief Information Officer at the Department of Justice, Mike Kennedy, the Program Manager, ISE, Director of Architecture and Interoperability, ODNI, and Dave Bowen, the Chief Information Officer, Defense Health Agency. We want to talk today about successful programs. Today's show is all about excellence, and we want to hear some stories from our guests. We're going to start with Dave Bowen at DHA. Dave, can you tell us a little bit about perhaps maybe a business problem or a mission goal that you set out to solve or achieve?
Sure, Jim, I'd be happy to. I'm going to talk about probably one of the largest business problems that I've ever had to face, and that is basically creating an entirely new agency and an entirely new IT organization within that agency. In the DoD, the money that we spend for healthcare has been rising rapidly over the last couple of years. We're currently running a budget of about $53 billion, which is about 10% of the DoD's total budget. Seeing this rise in healthcare costs, the Congress a number of years ago in an NDAA mandated that we take a look at our healthcare spending and our healthcare organizations as they currently existed across the services and do 2 things. Basically, take a look at how we could more effectively manage the system if we were able to bring the medical services of the various services, capital S, together. And deliver a more effective healthcare. And then the second thing, to take a look at a number of our back office functions that would be possible candidates to be put into a shared services model. And so the leadership across the services, along with the health plan, TRICARE, formed a group, and we looked at various things that we could do, various methods of standing up the agency, and looked at various functions that could be put into a shared services agency. We came up with 5 to start on originally, and they were pharmacy and logistics and health plan ops and facilities and finally IT. And so as a leader in the IT organization, I was asked to basically architect the consolidation of the IT capabilities within the medical communities of the various services and develop, design, and bring into being an operational IT entity that basically went live coincident with the stand-up of the overall agency last October 1.
Essentially starting from a clean slate.
Clean slate, totally blank piece of paper.
Man, I would think that's really neat to have that opportunity.
We had good days and bad days, let me tell you that.
Well, let's hear about some of the benefits that came out of it.
Well, there were a number of benefits. Congress anticipated realizing some benefits, and as part of our mandate from Congress, we had to do a business case, a real business case, by the way, like they do in the commercial sector with investments and savings and return on investment and all that stuff. So we put an organization together, we developed a business case, and I'll highlight some of the major benefits.
Okay.
One was cost. We realized that as we looked across the services, there was lots of duplication of infrastructure, lots of duplication of application functionality, help desks, all kinds of things. And so we figured cost savings was going to be significant, and our business case basically had 3 components of savings. One was around consolidation of management and consolidation of our contracts. The second area was around the consolidation of the infrastructure. You know, we had almost 3 and sometimes 4 of everything: desktop, or data centers, and help desks, and networks, and all that stuff. So trying to put all that together. And then the third area was application rationalization. How can we eliminate the duplication in our application portfolio. And so, so we embarked on efforts around modeling that and put together a business case, and I'll be able to talk about how we've done in the first year here, probably later on. Second thing, we needed a more reliable network. We needed to consolidate our networks. We need to have less variability. We need to have better uptime in terms of service to our customers, our hospitals across the system. And we thought we could do this through an effort around standardization, consolidation, and centralized management. Not only to be more reliable, but to take some costs and some personnel out of the equation.
Right.
Consolidation of IT activities. We anticipated not only one network, but what we found was that across the 3 services, if we had a given application that has to run on all of the hospitals, it has to be certified by each service individually. So that's 4 or at least 3 ATOs with all the attendant costs and things like that. So we could consolidate those activities, put everybody on a single network, and now I can buy an application, put it anywhere on the network, and then it's certified and good to go anywhere. Another thing that we took on was alignment with the overall DoD direction in terms of information technology. We're working with them on the Joint Information Enterprise direction that overall DoD is taking, and as a matter of fact, given our timetable, we're actually going to be sort of one of the leading entities of the DoD that will actually ride information on that network.
Now, if I asked you to wrap up here and give us, what are some like key lessons learned, or maybe keys to success that you think you learned through the process?
Well, key lessons learned. I mean, I talked to a group of our senior military leaders at a conference last week. And I told them this is not about an exercise in technology. This is an exercise in anthropology. This is
I like that.
Yeah, this is an exercise in change management. What do they say? Culture will trump strategy any day, and so we've got lots of cultures to deal with, lots of change management. So, a couple key lessons learned is get people on board on the team who are excited about doing this work, convinced that it'll be successful, and are anxious to help make a change and move forward. Second lesson learned would be that absolutely you need support from senior leadership. This is a difficult transition. People find that organizations are disrupted, funds flow disrupted, technology gets disrupted, and oftentimes you're called upon to ask senior leaders to make some pretty tough decisions. And third, and it bears repeating, is that communication is critical. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Up, down, across the organization, you can't do enough. So you need to use multiple modes. You know, we have websites, we have emails, we have town halls, we have various report outs to our leadership.
Terrific.
Things like that. So.
Terrific. Thanks, man. Sounds great. Sounds like I personally would love to have a clean slate and not have to inherit a whole bunch of legacy stuff and everything else. But sounds like you did a remarkable job, and thanks for sharing that with us here today. Mike Kennedy, let's go over to ODNI. Tell us something that's happened over there. I know all about the information sharing environment. That's a story that we've heard. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your involvement with that.
Well, we got something really exciting that's been going on this past year. It's basically after years of hard work and what seemed like an unreachable goal has finally come to fruition.
Cool.
We have the what's called the Sensitive but Unclassified Working Group that's been under the ISA IPC. They're co-chaired by Shimendra in the ISE. And they've been working for years to pull together. We realized that we had to have a better, simpler, quicker, easier, streamlined way for them to share information responsibly across their partners as the 4 partners. The 4 partners are made up of the HISN from Homeland Security, the Regional Information Sharing Systems, which is basically a state regional capability, Law Enforcement Enterprise Portal, which is LEAP, which is FBI, and then Intel Link, which is from the IC. Earlier this year, we actually got them, after several years of working together, to agree upon 8 standard attributes, and they signed MOAs across each agency.
Bet that was easy.
Like I said, several years, what seemed unimaginable actually came true. And I thought that was just absolutely remarkable. Here we are. I was ready to hang my hat on that and say, boy, we did something that's never been done
Right.
before. But then they took it a step further. The SBU systems are made up of law enforcement sensitive information, gang-related information, criminal intelligence information, critical infrastructure protection information, as well as the officer safety information that's in there.
Okay.
Critical that this is shared, and so what they've been able to do now is have a single sign-on by having these attributes recognized. We went into what's called a no wrong door
Okay.
Aspect. What happens with that is that you sign on to your network, wherever you are, whoever you are, and you have access to all the other networks now because you're partners.
Wow.
And you can seamlessly search and move across those networks. And so this ends up connecting like 400,000 plus
Wow.
law enforcement officers nationwide across federal, state, local, tribal, territorial, you name it.
Let me guess, I bet you bumped into that same culture issue that Dave did along the way somewhere.
I can tell you what, culture doesn't just eat strategy for every day. It eats it for breakfast at first thing in the morning. But the bottom line is that they're using fusion centers, law enforcement agencies, state, local criminal investigators. Everybody's involved in this that they came on. Now, before, if a stop was made and let's say they needed to search
Right.
something, they would have to log on to their system, then they would have to log on separately.
Oh,
to
yeah, I
another
know that
system,
issue.
Log on separately. Now it's a security trim federated search across
Man.
all the capabilities that are there. And so it was phenomenal. We didn't think it was going to happen. It was actually demoed last month at the National Fusion Center Training Conference. that we
And it all worked.
It worked.
Wow.
And it
Good
was
for
just-
you.
It was just, we just, basically using the attributes, we were able to define who the mission user is.
Right.
And by using the tags, we're able to allow discovery and access.
Right.
But at the same time, we can prevent discovery and access as required. So it brings into account the privacy and civil liberty concerns that everybody has.
Sure.
The only attributes that are retrieved and pushed back are those that are absolutely necessary. So it helps there too.
So if I asked you a key lesson learned or something you would pass on to those following you as to what made this program successful, what would your answer be?
Initially, to learn how to herd cats, no. But but really, what it boils down to is to change the culture, to shift from a need to know, okay, to shift to a need to share by leveraging the granular access control capability within there, convincing the partners that could happen, convincing the partners that they could work together. You had to get buy-in at all levels, from the technical all the way up to the chief executive of the different agencies.
Yeah.
Had to have that buy-in. And the thing is you had to know that one of the primary powers of the program manager information sharing environment is the power to convene.
Sure.
Bringing these folks together and getting them to agree and working with them until it happens. You have to make sure you have the right person at the table at the right time.
Right.
You don't want to bring in a bunch of executives and start feeding them a lot of technical information. You don't want to bring in a bunch of technical folks and feed them policy information.
Right.
It's like going to a tango dance and dancing dancing a waltz.
Okay.
It looks good on its own, but it just doesn't work. The bottom line.
Well, good analogy. I like that. Man, definitely puts it in perspective, but I can see that. And it's good to see the interoperability. You're talking data side, but I remember my days running Secret Service to interoperate with FBI and whatever. I used to say in the car, pick up that radio, talk to the FBI, pick up that radio to talk to the local police, pick up that radio to talk to, the Capitol Police, whatever. And, so we've come a long, long way with that interoperability. That's great to hear.
Well, the really big thing about it, too, is that it's able to be leveraged nationwide.
Right.
For a whole of government. It doesn't stop here. It can spread and be used for a whole of government.
Neat. Congratulations.
That's
Thanks
one reason.
for coming on and sharing that story with us. Joe Klimavicz, tell us about something cool going on at Justice that you're involved in.
Be glad to, Jim. Since I arrived at Justice in May, I've really been focused on how can we provide better services to our customers that reduce cost.
Okay.
And I think it's something that most CIOs are really focused
I
on.
have a feeling you hear that theme
Yes.
across more of the agencies than just one.
So in addition to really looking at the services that I provide, how can we improve those services? I think something that's equally important is implementing a service broker model where infrastructure, IT infrastructure, commodity IT services can be sourced from the best-in-class providers. So you're really looking across the whole government as to where we can get these services from. And my strategy is to be all-inclusive, to not to limit our search for the best services. And we want to learn from other experiences. And I've been pushing services, shared services for a long time. Right. And it's really about changing the culture to make, to really build this model in. I believe that shared services ought to be the de facto way that IT is delivered in the government. And the service broker model, I think, will make it easier to implement these services. Under this model, I'm encouraging components to be leaders in shared services. So my office doesn't need to provide all the services. I think it's a concept that
a governance model that pulls in all the components and gives them a say at the table.
Right. Well, I mean, if we don't provide any services at the department level, we use component services, and that's the way we do things. That's fine with me. If a DOJ component wants to extend their services across the department, I'm very supportive. I want to encourage that. But it's not just about DOJ entities. We want to look at other federal agencies, and to include industry. Now, we've already made a lot of progress in this area in 14, but it's a multi-year effort. At the end of 14, we published our first online service catalog. This includes all shared services out of my office. And provides a structure for future as well as existing shared services. By the end of 15, and this is pretty ambitious, is that we want to bring this online where customers can begin to order and to track services. So not everything, but we want to try to bring online shopping for IT services in the Department of Justice. Ultimately, the vision would be something more like Amazon.com, where you're allowing the customer to rate services and provide feedback, so that it's more of a marketplace is determining which services survive, which ones are the ones that are used. And one example that where we've implemented the service broker model in the department is on data center consolidation. So what we're doing is trying to establish one integrated set of hybrid services and infrastructure on-premise, outsourced in the cloud, to deliver the best possible IT services and data centers to our diverse mission. And I think this really will help us redefine how our federated approach to IT is delivered. And it's going to be more agile and I think ultimately more cost-effective to do this. We have a lot of data centers in the Department of Justice right now. And what we're trying to do is consolidate to 3 core enterprise facilities. And these are going to be run by the components. So we've already selected 3 core data centers that will not be run and managed by my office, but rather by the components.
Neat.
And standardized enterprise services.
Okay. Now, if I asked you what is a key lesson learned and something you would be passing on to your colleagues, and what do you think is a key of the success, what would your answer be?
Well, up front, we focus a lot on governance. I mean, who's going to make the decisions, and does everybody get a say, and how do they get a say? How do they get their points of view, their needs taken into consideration? So I think governance is key. I think executive leadership and key executive leadership sponsorship is something that's very important. And then lastly, I think communications is just, you can't communicate enough in this kind of thing when you're trying to change. You need to make sure everybody is on board, everybody understands. And one time is not going to be enough. You're going to need to keep very focused on that.
Yeah, I love it, and I like the fact that you said let's focus on the upfront stuff, the governance stuff, and everything else, and worry about the IT when we have that in place. I take notes here of what I hear from all 3 of you, and I hear change management, culture, senior leadership buy-in, service broker model and moving towards services model. I mean, we hear these days about Internet of Things. Everywhere I go, I hear about sort of like everything as a service. I mean, so, and in fact, to get the governance up front, get the governance in place, and communicate. With that, I want to thank our first three guests for being with us today on Profiles in Excellence. We're going to take a short break and come back with three other key executives. You're listening to Profiles in Excellence on the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Radio, 1500 AM.